Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Oh, people are ripping you, Rick.
Why?
Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. Where was Rick that he had to listen to the radio for the 94 Western Final? Too broke to own a TV back then? Unsigned.
First of all, J. Paul McConnell and Tom Larscheid are very good guys, good friends. And second of all...
So as a result, you listened to the radio?
I watched the TV, but I also knew about I heard the radio call. It was a beautiful call. Tom was so excited in the box, and so was JP. It was a great call.
I thought the Western Final, though, is the one you had to watch at the Best Western.
No, that's back in the 80s. This was 94.
I think he's right.
In the 80s, I would have to go to a Best Western to watch the Lions.
Thomas Drance is standing by, but I will say this. People might forget that the great Tom Larscheid used to do Lions games and Canucks games.
And Canucks. He was
same
so
season,
good.
Same years. Yeah.
Tom was so good.
Moving on. All of today's guests, including Thomas Drance, hopefully still standing by, brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Get ready for winter with an unbeatable stay at the Bayside. This season, they're offering 25% off their best available rate all winter long on weekday stays with a minimum 2-night booking.
Moonum.
Whether it's a cozy coastal getaway or a serene retreat, don't miss the exclusive offer. Call them directly, 250-248-8333, or visit us at BaysideResortParksville.com to book your event today. We still got time for Thomas? Okay, from The Athletic, start of a 6-game road trip for the Canucks tomorrow in Ottawa. Thomas Drance, how are you, sir?
Gentlemen, I'm doing well. Love to go to the Oceanside Resort to get mooned.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I'm looking for.
I'm leaving that one alone, buddy.
Yeah.
All right? All right. Okay, second stop on this road trip is Boston. When the Canucks landed Boston, play in Boston, will Nikita Zadorov be on the plane with them when they leave?
I mean, look, I love a good nugget that stirs things up, and that certainly did. Nikita Zadorov was awesome in Canucks blue, no question about it. I mean, this guy is a ton of fun. Had a tough start to the season in Boston, and I think everyone in Boston has had a tough start to the season. They've already made a coaching change, so that tells you how it's gone. And yeah, the Canucks need an upgrade on the blue line, so it's a fun sort of series of dots to connect there. I think where the Zadorov concept gets a little bit more interesting, gentlemen, is when you think about the dearth of options on the market, right? This is not a particularly robust market for defensemen out there in sort of NHL trade talks, and everybody needs one. So the cost is going to be prohibitive. And what I do think the Canucks are weighing right now is this sense of being in between, right? This sense of you've got Hughes, you've got Hronek. We know the second pair is struggling, but the Canucks are really high on a variety of young players, young defenders that they've sort of built up and built into their system over the past couple of years that are knocking on the door or will be in short order, but aren't here and can't help the second pair today. You're talking about Tom Belander. You're talking about Sawyer Mineo. You're talking about, some of the guys down in Abbotsford who are trending well, Elias Pettersson and Kirill Kudryavtsev and Cole McWard among them. And so this club's hopeful that they're going to have options down the line to really upgrade their blue line, in-house guys with real upside. And as a result, how much are you willing to spend on a rental defender, right, who may not offer you that significant an upgrade anyway over guys like Brandstrom and Soucy if he can get his game right, and Tyler Myers and on, right? Like, if you're going to spend, and if this club is going to spend, and I think this is what management is weighing at the moment while remaining extremely aggressive, if you're going to spend the sorts of assets that are required to bring in a player at the moment in this, overpriced market with few options, it better be a guy who fits long-term. And so that's sort of where I actually think there's some interesting substance to the Zadorov name coming up. I suspect it came up somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but Zadorov has term. He's got 5 years left on his deal. He's not just a fit for this year. He'd be a long-term fit for what this club wants. So, I do think that sort of mold of defender is something that if this organization decides to reach deep into their pockets and spend significantly on blue line help, a player with term, a player that's a fit for, many years to come. That's the sort of player that I think they're more eager to break the bank for, as opposed to, an older rental type, whose sort of benefit replacing or upgrading over a Brandstrom or a Soucy or a Myers isn't necessarily as big as it might seem on paper 6 months from now when you're heading into the playoffs.
Let me throw a name at you, Thomas. Aaron Ekblad. I don't know if you know him from your Florida days. He's a UFA.
I do.
Yeah. Choose a lot of minutes, right-hand shot. I know, this regime's liked him in the past, but man, I don't see Florida coughing him up at the deadline. They think they're another cup contender. Yeah. But boy, if that guy ever became available, wow.
Yeah, pending UFA. Right. Yep. And Florida has been ruthless with some of their aging vets in the past in terms of sending them along. You think about Mackenzie Weegar and, Jonathan Huberdeau was the second highest scoring player in the league after they traded him for Tkachuk that summer rather than engage in extension talks. They've extended a lot of their guys. Sam Reinhart obviously was a UFA was about to be a UFA when he got extended, but Barkov got extended proactively. Seems that there's been progress on Sam Bennett. They extended Carter Verhaeghe. I mean, they've sort of played a lot of their cards in terms of, Gustav Forsling's another one. They've played a lot of their cards in terms of locking up their core, and Ekblad hasn't been done yet. Look, Ekblad has long been a guy that I thought of as if you could design in a lab, who'd be the perfect fit for Quinn Hughes, right? I mean, it turns out it might be Filip Hronek, but I always thought that it was Aaron Ekblad, just given the size and play style and the skill level that he brings. I mean, he's a special, special player. Would he be eager to come to a high-intensity Canadian market? I'd be a little bit surprised about that based on, my knowledge of him personally. But, yeah, I mean, that would be a tremendous fit. Would the Panthers consider that sort of move? I mean, honestly, that's one of the more aggressive front offices in the league. But the piece that you're surrendering to get an Ekblad quality guy, I mean, you're talking about a core piece from the Canucks, right? I think so anyway. I think you'd be – if Florida was even considering that type of thing, they'd be considering it because you're giving them a younger player, in line with the MO that we saw from the Tkachuk deal with, Huberdeau and Weegar going out the door, two top of the lineup caliber pieces, but guys who are in their late 20s, as Ekblad is, in exchange for a guy in his mid 20s to sort of extend their window. I think it would have to be that caliber of deal and that caliber of return that Florida was getting if that would be a realistic option.
We haven't talked to you since the JT Miller news. You had some information about his injury status and how it affects the Canucks today. But overall, this just caught everybody off guard. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, I don't know enough about it to go too deep on the record beyond just saying, respecting the privacy of the player and hoping for the best for him and his family here as he works through whatever it is. I'm sure he'll share whatever details he's comfortable with on his return. But obviously, this guy's played his heart out, left it all out on the ice for this franchise. And if he needs a moment, if he needs a beat, I think we can all respect that. I did sort of just try to figure out exactly how the club was accounting for his absence from a cap management perspective. And my understanding is that he's injured non-roster. And so what that means is that the club has an extra roster spot. They're at 22 men on the 23-man roster at the moment. They don't get cap relief from it, so it functions exactly like normal injured reserve where you get the roster spot, but the salary remains on the books. And as a result, as the club heads out east for this 6-game trip, they can't actually bring up a 23rd body from Abbotsford because they're too pressed up to the upper limit of the salary cap. And that's no surprise. I mean, Miller, Forbert, Brock Besser, and Thatcher Demko all remain on the books, but aren't playing for the team. I mean, that's a fair bit of salary that the club has sort of locked into players that currently aren't in the lineup. And obviously, this team is prioritizing avoiding LTI to toll cap space daily with an eye towards sort of maximizing their flexibility at the deadline. So, I think the club is hopeful that Besser, Derek Forbert, and Thatcher Demko will return shortly. And, once that happens, once that begins to happen, once the reinforcements arrive, the club will be able to have 23 men in the lineup. But at the moment, they're too pressed up against the cap to fill out their 23-man roster at the start of this road trip.
You need a cough drop? I've got a lot here.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Honestly, I don't even need a cough drop. I just like got a frog in my throat or something. It was maybe it was a moon in my throat.
Okay, there's a visual for you. Still excellent, Thomas.
Yikes.
Under tough conditions. Thank you so much for this. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, gentlemen.